and welcome back to Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with the movers, the shakers, the film and TV makers, the producers, the writers, the directors, actors on non-union projects for the time being, cinematographers, film editors, sound mixers, composers, authors, you name it, we talk to them. And boy, we're going to do some talking today. First, I would be remiss not to mention Barbenheimer this weekend. New figures came out for Greta Gerwig's Barbie. They thought it was 133 million for the weekend. Then it was 155. New numbers came out this morning, 162 million domestic only. Oppenheimer, I think right now is sitting at 85 million for the weekend. This is the biggest movie weekend box office in movie history. A shocker. And I have not seen either film because Warner Brothers doesn't invite me to anything. Therefore, I don't cover their films because I can do that. But as many of our regular listeners, you know, Greta has been live on the show before talking about one of her prior nominated films. And I am going to try and get hold of Greta's people and see if I can get Greta back on the show to talk about her phenomena with Barbie. And if that happens, yes, I will actually pay money and go see the film. But every time I see the promos for Barbie, I have to say my mind goes back to Funny Face, Fred Astaire and Audrey Hepburn, and the Think Pink musical number in it. So all the classic film fans, I'm sure some of you are thinking the same thing. But it's very fitting that our first guest today is a female filmmaker, a female-centric film in front of and behind the camera. Coming in off the strong suit of Greta's performance with Barbie, SOPHIA CASTUERA is going to join us in 1 second. She's on hold right now. And then later in the show, we've got Gary Matoso and Cameron ZOHOORI. Hope I said that right. If not, Cameron can correct me later. Odd Hours, No Pay, Cool Hat, a documentary on volunteer firefighters in the United States. It is fascinating. But first, since she's already on the line, let me go ahead and say a big welcome to SOPHIA CASTUERA. Hi, SOPHIA.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I am fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, trying to survive this hot summer we've got going on in New York.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. You've got storms, rain, excessive humidity.
I didn't realize I live in the rainforest now.
You know, I'm from Philly. I never thought of it as the rainforest. However, there is definitely global warming or something happening because the East Coast, Philadelphia, South Jersey, New York, it's turning into a rainforest.
Totally. And all the flooding, it's just, it's kind of wild, but, you know, just trying to survive a day at a time.
And that's about all we can do. And
Yeah.
I was, at the top of the show, I was just telling the listeners that this is like a fortuitous day for you to be on the show after this bombastic Barbenheimer weekend. And Greta Gerwig's huge success with Barbie.
It's amazing.
And you can't get more girl power than Barbie. I'm sure Mattel's stock is probably rising today too. But
yeah, big time.
But here we are with you, and August at 22, your directorial debut narrative feature, female-centric, in front of the camera, behind the camera, female writer, your two main stars, females, your cinematographer, female. I mean, you directing. It's like the extended weekend of the woman.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I mean, I read a lot about how they grossed, like $155 million for the opening day?
Oh, no, they had new numbers today. New numbers for the weekend came out this morning. I heard them as I was driving into the studio. We're sitting at 162 million for the weekend.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, this is the biggest box office weekend in the history of movies.
That's so great. Oh, I'm so happy. And Greta Gerwig is such a hero of mine. Like both as an actor and as a director and writer. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, of all the names to be seeing, I'm glad it's Greta Gerwig. She's such a legend.
I know. I mean, and to think I knew Greta before she was so famous.
Oh, really?
But and Greta's been on the show before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she was on the show for I had her for a full hour a couple years ago, talking filmmaking, and it's fantastic. And that's one of the things about August at 22, because as I was watching the film, I was I got this great mumblecore feel that, Mark and Jay Duplass started. Greta came in with her first films that were with that mumblecore idea. And I felt that and saw that with August at 22.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's exactly who we were inspired by. So thank you for noticing that. I mean, they're huge heroes of ours. And, Ali Edwards, our writer and star, she definitely was extremely inspired by, especially the Duplass brothers and Greta Gerwig in her writing process.
Yeah.
And, that was what we set out to do as a team. Me, Ali, Mary Elizabeth, that was what we wanted, was this like naturalistic, mumblecore-esque, but in, the 2020s. So thank you for noticing that.
Well, you definitely achieved it. Because as I'm watching, and that was one of the first notes that I made on the film as I'm watching the film. Very Duplass brothers and Greta mumblecore in design and style. That was... how did you... I love the whole idea of this. We've got Ali stars as Cal. And, here she is. She's out of school. She's a wannabe actress. She's floundering in her career. And she's totally confused, as most 22-year-olds when they get out of school. You don't really have a job. You can't make ends meet. You want to be on your own. You want to be a grown-up. But you still have childhood jealousies and jealous streaks. You screw over your BFF, knowing full well eventually if they're your BFF, they're going to come back to you and help you out of whatever mess you get yourself in. You get lectured by your father, and then at the next minute say, Dad, can I have $20? So with this script, Ali perfectly captured what I think every single one of us have gone through at about that age.
Oh my God, yeah. She's brilliant. I mean, yeah, that $20 line is so funny. And I remember, I know the producer, when she read the script, that was like, she laughed out loud at that part. And it's funny because it's so realistic. And we definitely have been one moment yelling at our parents for whatever advice they're giving us. And then, oh, can I have $20? I can need groceries.
Yeah, after getting lectured because you don't have a job, you're not working. Yeah, I do have a job, I am working, but we never see her work. And she and her BFF, Bobby, calls her out on that. You're out partying and drinking, and you blew your audition this morning because you didn't focus on it. So, and that's a good friend.
Oh, yeah.
You might not think so at 22, but that really is a good friend who does that. And so you have these fantastic touchstones here that are built in. And, Ali writing the script is intimately familiar with the character, with Cal. Mm-hmm. But then it falls into your hands to bring this to life visually. So I'm curious about your approach to this, being your first feature. How did you go about sitting down and figuring out how your visual vision for August at 22?
So I started storyboarding pretty early on in my my filmmaking career, I guess. Like when I was going to film school, I began storyboarding because it was helpful for me to see it laid out like that. I had these ideas in my head, but you really don't know what they're going to look like until you see them in the real world in some capacity. And I feel like, I heard from like the greats that storyboarding was a very important part of that. And so that's the first thing I did with this movie was I got the script. Ali asked me to direct it, and I approached it from two different ways with the visual way with the storyboard, but also I'm an actor, so I would go through and like think about the objectives for each character and think about blocking in a way that would be visually interesting, but also thematically aligned with the story. And then I would talk with my director of photography, Melina Valdez, and we would do our shot list based on the storyboard. And that's what we did. That's how we did it.
Wow. So you went in, and this impresses me, Sophia, because there are so many first-time feature filmmakers or short film filmmakers, and they don't plan out. You sat down and planned out. Some people just think they can pick up a camera or tell their DP, okay, just point it over here, shoot. But you plan this out very thoroughly with storyboard, because a film like this, when you get a couple more under your belt, I don't think you're going to storyboard. You might storyboard a couple scenes, but a narrative like this, I don't see you, as you get more confident, storyboarding and shot listing the entire film. If you move into action, definitely, I think you'll be storyboarding up the wazoo. But I think for a narrative like this, because this is a very straightforward narrative, but for some scenes where you really do want to get a good visual sense of what you need to capture, such as the gallery, the party, moving in and out of rooms. So that was very smart of you. Very smart of you, taking that approach in production. But now, did you know, as you're storyboarding and shot listing, did you have your locations already?
We had some of them. That's actually funny because our first day of set, we had a friend's apartment that they very generously offered for us to use, and it was going to be Cal's bedroom. And it was going so smoothly that day. And then I see Mary Elizabeth, I'm like, standing at the monitor. I see Mary Elizabeth, our producer, making a beeline straight at me. And she was like, we have to leave. And I was like, haha, that's funny. I thought she was making a joke. And she's like, no, we're getting kicked out by the super. And so we lost our location. So all of the things that I had storyboarded for that specific location had to go out the window, and we all sat on the stoop outside of this apartment and, tried to brainstorm some sort of solution, because not only did we lose the location, but we lost everything we shot then. And, but we eventually just ended up using Allie's apartment at the time. So, some of the locations I did know and got to pre-plan a lot of it, but then there's stuff like that happens on set, and you really just have to pivot at that point.
So how much time did you lose? Because especially with low budget, no budget, micro budget films, time is a precious commodity. You don't have a lot of time, and you don't have a lot of money. And when you lose time, that costs you money.
Yes.
That you don't have to start with.
Yeah, I mean, we lost a day. We lost a full day, but it was a 17-day shoot. It was a whirlwind. And honestly, we made up for it with, I think we just, our first AD moved some stuff around, and it was totally fine. It was crazy because it was like the worst case scenario was losing our first location on the first day of shooting. And then the rest of the shoot was so easy. It was so easy. It was so smooth. And that was such a big part of having just the incredible crew that we had. It's the best set that I have ever been on, and it was all female, mostly queer. It was just so safe, so supportive. It was a lot of our first time making a feature, and it could not have gotten better. And I truly could not have done the job that I did without my crew, and I'll never forget them.
Well, one thing I think has been proven time again is that women filmmakers and female crew, women know how to get stuff done.
Yes.
be it in the world, be it on set. Women know how to get it done without a lot of angst.
We sure do.
You know, you lost one day, your location got screwed up. Okay, you pivot, and you pivoted quickly. You know,
I mean, we had to, you know.
That's very key. Now, I'm really curious because it looks like a lot of this was handheld. Was Melina running handheld with this one?
Yes, a lot of. I mean, there were a few shots on 6, but it was mostly handheld, like shoulder rig.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what else we had. It was so long ago. It's funny. I have my shot list somewhere, and we have all the notes written, so that's somewhere. But yeah, mostly handheld.
That's what I thought. Especially for some of the scenes, particularly between Cal and Emily. And I have to say, Lily Kay, she was striking. What she brought to the character of Emily, I really liked that confidence that she brought, which was a perfect counter to Cal's total confusion and insecurity and wanting to be a big girl and put her big girl panties on, but just doesn't do it. So I love that yin and yang that we get with those two characters. Lily really was terrific. Absolutely terrific.
Yeah, she's incredible. I loved working with her. She just was so grounded and did her homework, and came to set and was just always so prepared. Made my job so easy. And, you know, watching Allie and Lily work together was really fascinating as a director, and playing with that dynamic that you're talking about was so interesting, especially in, you know, like the earlier scenes where it's just the two of them hanging out for the first time. You really kind of feel, well, I mean, I felt in watching their performances and directing them, this sort of like cat and mouse game where like Cal is just trying to win Emily over. And it really isn't until, you know, the fun, frenetic energy of, you know, when they're running around in the East Village that it just kind of naturally, they just naturally fall into their, this interesting dynamic that, you know, where it's a little bit unclear if it's perhaps romantic, and, you know, no spoilers, but you see what happens in the movie.
And that ambiguity stays with us through the whole movie. Through the entire movie. So that is no spoiler. There is ambiguity as to whether we get a romantic relationship or not. Because, of course, what I love, and this is kudos also to Allie and how she wrote this and structured this script, is that the whole thing with Cal and Emily becoming friends, Cal kind of pushes it, and it's out of jealousy. Because you can see, and this is, I mean, Melina had some great shots at the initial party at Jacob. Her childhood BFF, obviously her lifelong crush. And she finds out he's got a girlfriend, and the girlfriend is Emily. And oh my God, it's not Cal. So the world is going to come to an end. So what do? You sidle up to the enemy. And try and drive a wedge, thinking she's going to get him back. I mean, this plays out. You see what she's doing. You see what's happening. And you see that Emily's not taking the bait. And you also see that Jacob is clueless. He's oblivious.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Completely.
That's a testament to your casting of Clay Singer. And
he's so great. He's so lovely.
He was a fun, clueless guy. But you knock it out of the park with your casting of Bobby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jorge Felipe Guevara. I mean,
the best.
That's who everybody should have as a BFF.
I know.
He's so
they're
charming.
The best. We met actually in acting school in this intensive together, and when I walked into the room, I just beelined it to them. They were sitting in the second row on the right side, and they just had this energy that I was like, I need to be your friend. I need to talk to you about everything. And, you know, when we were casting this movie, Jorge was like the first person that I thought of to read for Bobby. And it was just perfect, you know, when they read with Ali.
The chemistry between Jorge and Ali is wonderful. And, you know, all those moments of eating the same thing, knowing what the other one wants, calling, you know, Bobby calling Cal out for her crap. And I got to say, the heartbreaking scene is the photographic exhibition that Emily has. That rips your heart out. You went for the jugular there, Sophia.
Oh, yeah, I know. I loved that scene. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with, like, you know, when that shot where Bobby's running to the bathroom because Cal's just told him to change.
Yeah, he's inappropriately dressed.
Yes, yeah. And then you see the backpack and the sunflower that he bought for her. And I just, you know, we had to get that on the camera because, you know, you never get to see the moment of Bobby celebrating Cal and giving the flower to her. You just see it, you know, sadly moving in the backpack as he's running to the bathroom.
Yeah, and then the aftermath of the bathroom.
Yeah.
And that just ripped my heart out. I mean,
yeah.
You hit all the emotional beats in this film, Sophia.
Oh, thank you.
And I really love that. Anytime I'm looking at a feature directorial debut from someone, I always wonder, are they going to hit the beats? How's the editing going to be? How's the pace going to be? And you really hit everything that you needed to with this film. And the fact that it is a mumblecore styling, that plays to your advantage because it's so natural and you're not as locked in to cinematic requirements, so to speak. So I think, and that with this kind of film, it worked to your advantage greatly, which I'm curious, how much freedom did that give you in the editing phase and working with Amir?
Oh my gosh. Well, what do you mean freedom? I'm curious what you mean by that. Because honestly, from our perspective, like, it was Amir, at one point in the editing process, like, Amir did his version of the edit because it was originally, some of the scenes were in a different order, actually, like, written. And, you know, we shot it in that order. And then at some point, we all three of us, Ali, Mary Elizabeth, and I went, okay, Amir, like, we're curious, like, how do you see this movie? And we'll watch that edit. And he came out with what is currently the film.
Wow.
And we just had to put a lot of trust into him because he also just got what we were going for when we sat down to talk to him about editing. And, you know, it was perfect. And I mean, that was kind of scary to give up that kind of control over the narrative.
And see, that's what I mean by freedom. How much freedom do you have? Or were you so locked into the script that it's, no, I got to adhere to this, I got to adhere to this. But no, you put your faith and your trust in Amir.
Oh, yeah.
And we're beyond surprised.
Yeah, it was amazing. And, I mean, at first we were a bit like, you know, I would say me especially, I was quite stubborn at the beginning because I storyboarded everything. And I was like, well, but that's not how I storyboarded it. But at some point I was like, okay, you know what? Put the ego to the side, like, trust your crew, like, trust every part of this process. And, you know, a lot of that was just, again, like, having Ali and Mary Elizabeth by my side to also make a scary decision like that because this was our baby. And then we sent this baby to, you know, Amir, and now it's all of our babies. And yeah, it was just, I mean, that's a huge thing that in my next film, I'm going to be having a lot of trust in people, and because of this process, it was just perfect.
Now, you said something very key. You shot this in chronological order?
No, we shot
okay.
We shot it not in chronological order.
Because, yeah, with Amir moving things around, from how you had originally storyboarded it. All right. So, yeah, I was going to say, oh, please tell me you did not shoot it in chronological order.
No, no. Our AD was super smart and knew exactly how to schedule this. That would have been so wild. Yeah.
Now, was it a surprise to you when Amir came back with what is essentially the final version now? I mean, this is a tight, 82, 84 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't waste any time. There's no awkward silences that aren't that beyond what is supposed to be awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So, that I find absolutely amazing that you came in so tight on this, especially with this kind of film, because when you've got people talking and going back and forth, and it's very much, the mumblecore day in the life, blah, 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 we're going on events, we're idiots, you're clueless, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Quite often you run into the problem of, okay, where do we cut? What do we cut out? We could just let this keep rolling. But you didn't have that problem.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I really do think like a big part of that was Amir. I also just think that that's also something strong about Ali's script. And, we did do some improv in and out of scenes, kind of like the way that, some of the filmmakers from the mumblecore movement do.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, we lost a lot of really funny improv moments on the cutting room floor. But, it was at the, kill your darlings to make the best thing, to make the best art that you can. Like we're sitting in the editing room laughing at this, but like it's wasting time narratively and making that decision is difficult. But, having Amir and having such a strong core team was just really important to like making those difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I kind of wish that there was some I wish we had like not a blooper reel, but like a reel with like all of the lost improv moments.
You could still put one together. There is always DVD. I mean, because now this comes out tomorrow.
I know. I can't believe it.
On digital and VOD, this is out tomorrow, so everyone can see it. This has to be big for you to have your very first film already hitting VOD and digital.
I can't even believe it. I don't think I'll actually believe it until tomorrow.
When you start flipping so on, cable channels and digitally and, ooh, it's here, ooh, it's here, ooh, it's here.
Yeah.
You're going to have a clicker in your hand and you'll be streaming all day.
Yeah. I'm very excited and I'm just so grateful to it's been on pre-sale for a bit and I have some friends and family that have already bought it and I'm just so grateful to all the support that's been coming from my community and I just hope that I want this to get the widest possible audience because like I said this was a full female set and it's a female-centric story and it's a queer story and this is the kind of stuff that needs to be seen right now, especially on an independent level with, everything going on. And we're such a small film and a new production company. And I just really, really want as many people as possible to see this.
But I think what's very important to the broader audience out there is that this is not offensive. You're not forcing anything down anybody's throats. This is just a few days in the life of Cal and how screwed up she is and how screwed up all of us have been at that same point in our lives.
Yeah.
So, and I don't care if if they're made by 80-year-old white men or 20-something, queer community, anybody in LGBTQ. A good film is a good film, and it speaks to the broad audience, and that's exactly what you have here.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. It's such a personal story to Ali and, something that deeply resonated with me personally, and I just believe so much in the power of these small, intimate, personal stories to speak to a wide audience. I think that's, as an artist, that's something that I really, really do believe in. So
yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, you cover all the bases here. I guarantee you that there are guys out there They're going to see Jacob, the character of Jacob, and they're going to laugh, say, "That's not me." Yeah, dude, it is.
Yeah.
Trust us.
Totally is.
It is. So now is you're getting ready for this to be launched, birthed tomorrow to the world. As you look back on this experience, what did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker that you can now take forward into your future projects?
That is a great question. I mean, like I said, your crew, your team, it's everything. That is something that I am always going to carry with me no matter what moving forward. But in terms of what I learned about myself, I mean, I guess I'm proud of myself for like jumping into my first feature as a director and trusting myself somehow, because, you know, that's something that I struggle with a lot personally. And, you know, I think I've written a feature that's in development and a short film, and I just find myself getting nervous about it. And I'm like, wait, I directed a feature. What am I nervous about? Like, I got this, you know? So just having that confidence and that trust in myself is something that I proved to myself over this process. And also, like, projects take the time that they take. You can't push things. You can't rush things.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this took a while, mostly due to the pandemic. But you know, here we are now, and it's coming out tomorrow, and it's here, and it's exactly where it should be, and I'm exactly where I should be.
Well, Sophia, I can't wait to see what you bring us next. Whenever you have it, whenever you're shooting, please let me know, because I definitely want to follow your career trajectory. Having seen what you've done here with August at 22. And a word to Greta Gerwig. She better be looking over her shoulder, because you're going to be coming up right behind her.
Well, I hope maybe that she and I can work on something together.
But job well done, Sophia.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Your kind words. That's so kind.
Yeah, well, Annie will tell you. If it sucked, I'd tell you that too. So... I'm brutal. I'm brutally honest.
I love that.
But no, job very well done. And I hope that you'll come back on the show again in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to. I'll be here soon. We'll see.
Yay! Well, you go have a wonderful opening day tomorrow, Sophia, and hopefully we'll chat sooner rather than later.
I hope so. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sophia. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Sophia Castuera talking about August at 22, her feature directorial debut. It really is. It's a charming film. If you like the mumblecore style, in particular, of the Duplass brothers, Greta Gerwig's early films, you will like this film. VOD and digital tomorrow. So, do we just have one line? Oh, well, I can bring that live myself. Oh, well, now it's about to get really hot, because we're going to be talking firefighters. And I am so excited to bring these directors on. Gary, Cameron, are you there?
Hi, Debbie. Yeah, thanks so much for having us. We are here. Thank you.
Oh, my God. Guys, I love this documentary.
Oh, thank you.
As I was telling my sound engineer, Pam, before we went on the air, I grew up in suburban Philadelphia in the 60s, 70s, and people don't think that a suburb of Philly would not have a fire department. Well, we had a fire department, but it was a volunteer fire department. So I grew up knowing the importance of volunteer firefighting. And, they would even send up the air raid siren would go off whenever there was a call for the fire department. Plus, you could see all the guys in the neighborhood who were firefighters would run out of their houses heading to the station. There was always somebody there to man a call, because these were the days long before 911. But you really learned as a child I mean, it was like, ooh, that's Mr. Gillespie. He's a fireman. And you just respected them and you knew that they were there to help you. Same thing with the ambulance drivers. Same thing in South Jersey where my grandparents lived. They didn't have a municipal fire department until into the 80s. There again, it was all volunteer, and in South Jersey, their home was in the Pine Barrens. So it's all woods. And when that goes up in flames, that goes up in flames.
Yeah.
So for me, having personally experienced volunteer firefighting brigades and in towns, this film really spoke to me, and I absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big point of the film. Actually, a lot of people don't know about, how broad, that volunteer firefighting is across the country and the critical role they play in communities, large and small. I think a lot of people assume it's all small rural communities, but I mean, especially on the East Coast, there's just a tradition of volunteer firefighting.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the main purposes of the film was to just raise awareness. I mean, there's obviously a recruiting element as well, and we want to inspire people. And the calls are increasing and numbers are down in terms of firefighters. But really, a big part of it was just letting people know that there are these people all across the country who are, putting so much time and passion into protecting their communities.
Yeah, I think even down in Georgia, where I have in a very small rural community where one of my aunts lives, I think theirs is a volunteer fire department too. I'm very curious how the two of you got involved in making this documentary. This is not exactly the kind of subject that would come popping up over the breakfast table. Unless your house is on fire. So how did the two of you get involved in this story?
Yeah, so this film actually started with Peter Yoakum, who's the executive producer on the project. And he had been looking for a story to tell that would be, unifying and uplifting at a pretty divisive time. He was looking for that type of story. And at the same time, learning about, some of those stats that Gary was talking about, the fact that volunteer numbers were going down, calls were going up. He was having a lot of conversations with chiefs in his area of the country, and just realized there was an opportunity to tell stories that were very compelling and entertaining, but also had this potential for impact. So he's actually the one who brought the story to us and started putting the pieces together for, bringing us as a team on to make the film, and talking to the National Volunteer Fire Council at a national level. They lobby and advocate for volunteers. So working with them to understand the landscape across the country. So we knew nothing about it going into it. As connected as everyone is to volunteers, we didn't have any personal experience with it or any close family involvement. So we had a lot to learn about that scope and variety and range of things of what it means to be a firefighter across the country. So we just kind of dove into it and started educating ourselves.
How long was that education process before you even started shooting?
We started with, Cameron, one of our main partners in the project was the National Volunteer Fire Council. So they were just a great starting point. And Peter had done work. Peter had done research. And, he obviously, when we first talked about the project, he was the first person to kind of introduce us to the topic. And, which was, we knew was we didn't know anything about it, but we knew it was a good story to tell. And then we spent time speaking to the National Volunteer Fire Council and, kind of expanding our knowledge and understanding really kind of what the issues, the challenges they were facing and the role of the volunteer fire service across the country. And then we put out a casting call for stories. We started, wanted to look at stories. And we initially thought we would do 3 stories for the film. That was kind of our starting point. And we got flooded with submissions. We had, I think, like 800 submissions come in within a couple of weeks of just these passionate stories of people's love of the fire service, the experience, how it's changed their lives, why they do it. And that was really kind of the eye-opening, that was the light bulb went off on our heads. that's we started realizing the depth of the story, the scope of the story, how, this is affecting communities, how it's affecting the people's, personal lives, and just all the diversity of the types of stories and things that these fire departments are doing in different communities. And so that really kind of set the tone and informed, the approach to the project.
How did you ultimately end up with the firefighting companies you have, and then the individuals that you really showcase with interviews and in the course and scope of their work?
Yeah, it was a long process, as Gary said. It was, a series of conversations, basically, starting with those just initial submissions that people had given us with just a line or two of their story. And then Louise Collette, who's our casting director, kind of led the charge on fielding those, 800 submissions, looking through them, and starting to have just, Zoom conversations. This was the middle of the pandemic when we were, doing this. So just learning as much as we could about people's lives and their departments. And it was kind of jointly that education for us, and just evaluating how would we construct this as a film, what kinds of stories do we want to include. We knew we wanted to have this broad range of geography across the country, of ages, of different backgrounds, different types of stories. So we just started kind of filling out a grid essentially of different types of stories and trying to get the right balance. So it was kind of that left brain approach on the one hand of just this logical, how do we create a balanced cast of characters, but a lot of it was also just our reactions to these people that we were meeting, and what did we find compelling in these kind of relationships that we were starting to build with them, and who was really enthusiastic and willing to be vulnerable and share their stories, which was thankfully a lot of people. So we did have a lot to choose from. It was very difficult, but we were lucky to have a really amazing cast of characters in the end.
Well, I think the cast of characters that you came up with is fantastic. Absolutely a segment that there's no way you could not have included is the Muncie Fire Department from Muncie, New York, and Yitzi Grunwald. A Hasidic Jewish man, and he was so desperate to be a firefighter and to help and give back that even adhering to his faith, figured out how he could still be a firefighter without having to cut his beard or his hair. Just amazing. And the fact that the Muncie Fire Department was willing to make an allowance and figure out how he could participate. That whole story is phenomenal. But you hear the passion in Yitzi's voice about, wanting to be a firefighter and the help that he can give. And that just absolutely is standout. But you guys and Cameron cutting this film, to start this off with Jenna Dunbar, who watched, her entire community burn down.
Absolutely.
She escaped burning up herself by just mere minutes. That really, you hit us a gut punch kicking the film off, guys. A gut punch.
Mm.
And anybody that is not drawn in at that moment has no heart, has no soul.
Yeah, there were definitely stories. Like Cam said, we had we wanted a lot of different people to see themselves in this film, whether that was the part of the country they were in or their background, their motivations for what people did. But there were some stories that were just like, that came in and was like the Muncie story that was like, oh, we're definitely doing that story.
Yeah.
It was too good of a story, and, I think the Little Fork, the large animal rescue story was another one like that. Jenna's story was another one where they just the story was so solid that we didn't really have to too much about it, other than just making sure that people were on board with participating and, really sharing the story. But that Muncie was definitely a favorite, and Jenna, for that matter.
Well, and of course, Little Fork. I love Little Fork because of the fact when you're doing the interviews, it might have been Melissa Mainville, who was talking about the large animal rescue. and how they get called out to other areas because they do specialize in that. And this is something else that the average person doesn't realize, is that because of the very nature of the communities that these volunteer fire departments are servicing, they do become specialized in certain things. I never thought I would be watching a film on volunteer firefighters and see a cow get rescued out of a swimming pool. I've seen a horse get pulled out of a ditch on, Emergency by Roy DeSoto and Johnny Gage. But I have not seen a cow get airlifted out of a swimming pool with a hoist on a fire truck. You've got an embarrassment of riches here, guys. What can I say?
Absolutely. Well, and that was the cool thing to learn about, was just that range, and the fact that, like you said, it's the nature of the service, because it's community-based. It's people in the community helping each other, that there's this flexibility and adaptability. You know the people you're going to help, so you come up with these creative ways to help them, because you know that it's your community. And that was something that a lot of volunteers were just really proud of, was that fact that, they were doing this because they care and because they know their community and they know the people. And sometimes it's strangers, and they're very proud of that too. But the fact that, if in some of these rural areas, if they were to have a paid department, it would be, very basic services, because that would be all they could afford. You wouldn't have that kind of creativity. And some places it's large animals, some places it's hurricanes and flooding and rescues for, swift water. And some places it's rock slides and, there's all kinds of things. And it was just this community, neighbors helping each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Exeter story, which was a small,
I was just thinking of that one. Just thinking of that one.
Yeah, because they, so for that story, 500 people, little town, out really in the middle of, Nebraska. There's you go in any direction for miles and it's just cornfields and nothing there. And, they only get 43 calls a year, but, there are 43 really important calls, opposed to maybe some of the more metropolitan places that we did in Wheaton, where they get 10,000 calls a year. But, the point is the fact that those calls, and these farm accidents are really dangerous, nasty stuff is happening. And if you can't get somebody, there in 10, 15 minutes, it's life or death, know. And I think that, so it's not always about the size, the number of calls or whatever. It's just that each community has its own needs. And like I say, these departments are, really critical for them to survive as a community.
Well, and I love the fact that we also get in the farmland, the fact that farmers actually have volunteered. They're not firefighters, but they have volunteered that when there is a crop fire, they will come and they will bring their tractors and they will start doing fire breaks in fields of various crops to stop the fire from spreading and destroying whole ranches and moving on to the next one and the next one. And that speaks volumes as to the community nature of these volunteer firefighting communities.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that was something that I think we really wanted to come through in the film was, some of those farmers, they're not necessarily firefighters. There are plenty of them who are firefighters and, volunteer at the department too. But just that sense of neighborliness and communities helping themselves and helping each other is so, whether it's through a volunteer fire department or not, that's something that there is. There's the American individualism that, of course, is a real part of our legacy, but there's also this real community spirit that is a part of our country, too, and people helping each other, and just because it's the right thing to do, and weaving those bonds between people. And so we hope that it's, an inspiring film in that sense, too.
I think it is. And talk about inspiring. You guys were smart enough. It's like you don't just wake up one day and you're a volunteer firefighter. You do need some training. So for that, you take us to Washington State Fire Training Academy in North Bend, Washington, and we get to see these recruits on their 12-weekend training course. Boy, I thought they wanted to die. They were going to drop from exhaustion at the start of it. But we really get a sense of what these volunteer firefighters go through to become volunteer firefighters.
Yeah, it was a good, that story, every story had a purpose that we picked. Even, if we go back to the Muncie one for a second, it was really, it was Jitsy's story, it was the department story, but it was about a department who needed to look beyond their normal base to help, deal with their recruiting issues. And we thought that could be in any community around the country, to be looking to other communities who might not necessarily feel welcome. We thought it was a representative story, even though it was a unique story with the Hasidic Jewish, kind of backdrop to the story. On the Washington State story, I think one of the things that was important on that is that I think there's a perception maybe that, volunteer firefighters aren't as well trained as career firefighters. Which is really not the case in most. It's different in every state what the requirements are, but in most states now, the requirements are the same for a career firefighter as a volunteer firefighter. And, I think when you're upside down in a car, on the side of the road, and that fire truck shows up, and that firefighter's there, the person's there to rescue you, you're not wondering whether they're volunteer or career. You're just really grateful that someone's there to help you. I think you see it in the very, not to give it away, the last scene of the movie, the kind of the professionalism and the dedication and the time that these people put in, and putting themselves in, extremely, dangerous and, traumatic situations, and they're not getting paid for it is pretty incredible.
Well, and something else, talking about Yitzi and also bringing in Natalie Cruz Perez, something very important about both of them. With Yitzi, he speaks Yiddish. He's Hebrew. He is, and it's a big Hasidic community there. So that for elders and whatnot, they may not be able to speak enough English, and he can converse with them and calm them and help them and get information from them, speaking to them in a language they're more familiar with. Same with Natalie. Speaking with any, Spanish speaking, the Latino community. She is from El Salvador. So that's another added benefit here when you open up, the walls to bring in more people as volunteer firefighters. And I thought that was a nice little subtext to what you're showing us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's seeing that diversity in our communities as an asset, right? The fire department's always talked about, whether it's language skills, whether it's other skills that people bring because of, the wide range of day jobs that people have that they're bringing into this. It's great to have electricians on fire departments because they know how those systems work in a burning building. They know what you need to get to stop an electrical fire. Those kinds of things that everyone brings to the table, and that as you said, that language component, that racial and ethnic background that people bring to it is an asset, and all those communities, of course, deserve those services delivered in a way that makes sense for them, and it's the only way to do it.
Now, a big question for I'm guessing Cameron, this is going to be a big one for you with editing, is what was the editing process here to find your through line and to cull through all of your footage? Because you've got, interview footage, you have on-scene footage, you have rescuing cow footage, you have ambulance issues, major traffic accidents. You have so much footage. Where do you even start to cut this?
Great question. Yeah. It was I think between 40 and 50 interviews and around 300 hours of footage total, I think. So it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. And really, it was a lot of experimentation. It was a lot of just trying different things. There was no sort of magic wand. I think the one thing that we tried to stay true to is just what our experience had been of these different communities and people, and kind of really getting into the essence of what was compelling to us, what had been surprising to us, what was funny to us, we wanted people to have that experience of meeting firefighters and spending time with firefighters and realizing this is who firefighters are in the country, volunteer firefighters. And so really just trying to include all those things that, the actually going to fight fires was not a huge part of it. 1 out of 30 calls at most is a fire. So it was all the time hanging out in the stations, the things that people do outside of the firehouse, and really just, trying to stay true to that experience that we'd have of what are the things that make up the life of a volunteer firefighter and how can people get to know these people better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot on the cutting room floor, that's for sure. Lots of great scenes that we couldn't include, but we really wanted to include that just wide range and really make it this kind of trip across the country. And even though it's little, pieces of each, to just kind of bring it together, hopefully in a coherent way.
So
the only thing I would add to that is it was just that initially we had these kind of higher level conversations around some of the themes that we wanted to highlight. So women in the fire service, or the training issue that we spoke about, or, opening up to your communities, the things that we were talking about. And we had conversations with chiefs and different people around that. And then at a certain point, we just realized, we don't really need to hit people over the head with this. We just need to, there's 5 or a ton of badass women in this film. We don't need to talk about women in there. We'll just show it. So I think that was kind of a key turning point in the edit, was just show, don't tell, whatever we could. And that there was enough, examples of the ideas that we wanted to get across without having to talk about it. We just could just show it, and that was a breakthrough for us.
Yeah, you show numerous scenes, and you're not interviewing, you're just showing, and we see the number of women that are there as part of the brigade that came to the rescue or the accident. You don't need to say anything. It's picture speaks 1,000 words. These spoke more like 10,000. So that was very effective and a smart move. How many months did you spend in editing on this one?
It was about a year of editing, better part of a year, definitely. Yeah, so it was kind of a 2-year process in total for the film. So, just maybe 6 months or so pre-production, a few months of production on and off, and then editing, for pretty much a year.
Wow. Did you do any editing at all as you were collecting your footage and doing interviews, or did you wait until you had all of it and then dove in head first?
Very, very little before we were done. It was a pretty intensive production process where we were traveling across the country visiting all these places. So there wasn't much time to do that. I always like to do that if I get the chance. But in this case, it was 99% was done after we got home and just started processing everything that we had taken in and seen, and then embarked on the edit.
So now here we are. Everybody can see this come tomorrow on VOD and digital. And dare I say, they should also make this a double feature with a phenomenal documentary that you guys may have seen, Elemental Reimagined Wildfire, about how wildfires happen. So they can get a full bore here with firefighters and fire. As this is about ready to come out, and I know that John Deere has been behind this film, what have each of you learned in the process of making this film? Gary, you come out of still photography, commercial photography, and Cam, you've done tons of things with neuroscience. Seriously? And this is what you do.
I dabbled.
Neuroscience to film. So, what did you guys learn about yourselves as filmmakers and storytellers with this documentary? Because with what each of you has done in the past, that is storytelling. I mean, Gary, commercial photography, it is. That tells a story. Photojournalism tells a story. And Cam, you definitely have done storytelling, especially with the work that you did with youth in Massachusetts. and your documentary, The Vow. So, what did each of you learn about yourselves as filmmakers and storytellers that you can take forward into your next projects and to further, the company of Vignette along?
Well, it's a great question. So we've been, Vignette's been around for 12 years. Cam and I have been working together for 8 years, and we've done a lot of little films. I think a lot of our projects kind of are in the 2 to 15 minute range. So, we've spent years kind of developing our skills, and both just as individually as filmmakers, Cam as an editor, both of us shot on the film, and just kind of us being able to shoot in tandem and how we cover a story. But I think being able to take that into a feature film, which we had never, done by far. I think maybe our 20 minutes was maybe our longest piece before. So it was a huge learning curve, I think, and kudos again to Cameron on the edit, because that was the heaviest lift. I mean, shooting the stories, we've shot a lot of stories, and I felt like we had a pretty good handle on that, and I thought we did a pretty good job on the pre-production. But the post-production was the real beast, I think, on this project, and Cam was amazing on that. I think the other thing was just personally, one of the things we loved about the film, and we didn't necessarily go into it thinking this, but I thought it was impossible to do a film in America today that's not somehow polarizing or divisive, or you're going to get into some kind of argument with somebody about it. And somehow this film just rises above all of that. And I think maybe that's one of the things we're the most proud of the film, is that it's this film that can really bring people together. And, I'm really proud of the fact that we just kind of went all over the country and did these stories. And, really, we never devolved into any type of political or, other discussion other than, people just helping their neighbors and helping their, helping just volunteering their time and, and doing what's right. And that was, very satisfying, I think, to have a film that does that.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, Gary, thanks for saying that about the edit. I mean, that was, it was the biggest hurdle in many ways, and where I think I learned the most about filmmaking was not so much in the how do you do the storytelling part, but just it was a marathon. It was a long process, shorter than a lot of documentaries. I mean, there are documentaries that take 10 years to make or more, but still, the figuring out the right mindset to have with a project like this, of staying connected to why you're doing it and the goals of the project. And I mean, with this one, we had these impact goals in mind, and I'm actually editing the film like on a fairly major road with fire trucks that go by like several times a day with their sirens going. So I had these daily reminders of like why I was doing this and the urgency of it, which was great. But I think, it was figuring out how to stay connected to that over the long haul of editing a project like this, and just being inspired by the goals of the film. I think it's the kind of project that I love to do, where it's very intimate and personal, and there are these kind of individual stories and stakes with these people who we got to know and became very close to. But then it also it really does speak to these really large themes in our country, and hopefully with these impact goals. So I think, I just know that I want to keep doing more stories like that, where they kind of have that combination of just sort of undeniable drama on the ground, but hopefully with the possibility to make people think a little differently or do something a little differently in their lives.
Well, and for anybody that wants more information on Odd Hours, No Pay, Cool Hat, or how to become a volunteer firefighter in their community, they can go to oddhoursfilm.com. I mean, it's a wonderful website you guys have on the film, and people can click on volunteer, and that'll direct you in terms of for volunteer firefighting if you're in a community that needs that. And I thought that was really cool. to have
One
that.
thing I'd just add to that, just really quickly, is the volunteering, and I think something that comes through the film, but we always talk about it, is that the departments don't just need volunteer firefighters; they need all kinds of volunteers.
Yes.
So it could be, PR help. It could be, oh God, I'm blanking now and everything. But there's
Fundraising,
cooks,
cooks.
all these different types of things that these departments need. So don't feel like you need to be the person that's going to go in and knock down the door and run into a burning house and save the puppy. There's lots of ways you can help your volunteer fire department and volunteer.
Guys, I can't thank you enough. I love this documentary, and it's such an eye-opener for people that have no clue about the volunteer firefighters in America, in the United States. Just so well done. Are you working on anything else right now, or do I have to wait another few years for something?
Hopefully not a few years, but yeah, I've got a couple. Nothing I'm ready to quite talk about yet, but we definitely have some things, irons in the fire for sure. But we definitely, I think we've got a taste of doing, this larger, or longer form work, and I think we, feel like we've kind of, it's the direction we've been trying to head as a company, and I think we're excited to do more work like that.
Well, I'm excited to see what you guys bring us again in the future. I really am.
Thank you so much.
I love your filmmaking voice. I love this documentary. And if this is your calling card, boy, oh boy, we got a lot to look forward to.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Pleasure to talk to you.
Gary, Cameron, thank you so much. And you have a great opening day tomorrow.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
And that was Gary Matoso, Cameron ZOHOORI. Odd hours, no pay, cool hat. That is all the time we have today. Tomorrow, August 22, digital and VOD. Odd hours, no pay, cool hat. Tomorrow, digital and VOD. And all week, it is Shark Week. You knew I had to mention Shark Week. And if you're watching on the Adrenaline Radio Facebook page right now, you can see I brought some of my very precious old sharks with us to set today. And if you're looking for some shark movies outside of the typical, the Jaws 1 through 5 or 100, whatever it is now, you've got Cocaine Shark is out now on digital. Jurassic Shark 3 Seavenge is out now. And don't forget one of my favorites this year so far, shark movies, Sharkula. It's shark heaven this week. So when you're Barbied out, Oppenheimered out, check out some fires. Check out what it is to be 22 again.